The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
For a new program to be put in place, first there needs to be a request from the authorities to the IMF, explained Andrew Jewell, the IMF's resident representative in Georgia, to BMG. After that, the request would need to be considered by the IMF staff and management, as would be the case with any other country, and eventually approved by the IMF's executive board. The IMF continues to monitor Georgia and its framework for macroeconomic stability. Article 4 consultations and staff visits are ongoing for Georgia, even though the standby program has been suspended and it is set to expire in June. The IMF-supported program originally included a 3-year standby arrangement with a loan of $289 million. After the completion of the first tranche of $40 million USD, Georgia was due to receive the second tranche in 2023, but the IMF postponed the submission and board approval of the second review of Georgia's standby arrangement, SBA, stating that the delay in board approval was partly due to disagreement over a change in the NBG's management structure. The changes went through after Parliament expedited the adoption of the draft amendments to the organic law on the National Bank of Georgia, NBG, on February 9, 2023. However, President Salome Zurabishvili vetoed the amendments on February 23rd, citing concerns that they might undermine the bank's independence. On June 20, the Parliament overrode the president's veto and approved the amendments. Consequently, Natia Turnava was elected the first vice president of the National Bank of Georgia by the NBG's board of directors on June 22, 2023. Another issue was the reform of state-owned enterprises. According to the IMF, it was important to make the sector more efficient, to ensure the necessary financial oversight powers of the Ministry of Finance over state-owned enterprises, and to divide the ownership of these enterprises between the Ministries of Economy and Finance. Last year, in late November, the Checkpoints interviewed Jihad Azur, the director of the Middle East and Central Asia Department at the International Monetary Fund, who once again reiterated that both issues, the independence of the National Bank of Georgia and the reform of the SOEs, are the fundamental issues that could make Georgia's economy more resilient and Georgia's business environment more attractive. We can now listen to our very short interview, which was recorded in November 2024. My question is about the program itself. I understand that the program is still suspended, but I want to check what it means in essence. Is there any structural reform work still going on with Georgia's authorities and with NBG for that matter? And how is the IMF involved with Georgia's authorities and the NBG? And what is the perspective of the program looking forward from this standpoint?
Well, as you know, the program has been on hold since June 2023, and it is expected to expire in June 2025. Issues that led to that are, in fact, important elements that will help anchor credibility and stability of policies, in particular to safeguard the role of the National Bank of Georgia, the central bank, and preserve its independence. The discussions regarding the nature of the fund engagement with Georgia will resume as a new government is in place. Of course, Georgia economic performance remained robust, and growth in 2024 was strong and broad-based. However, the outlook is subject to still significant uncertainty. Externally, the main source is related to the war in Ukraine and commodity price volatilities. Domestically, the key risk or the key issue is to preserve internal economic stability. Strengthening the governance of the National Bank of Georgia and its independence is paramount. This is also important to safeguard and strengthen the credibility of the monetary policy and the macro financial stability, especially that the level of foreign reserves have remain lower than desired, and that because it fall below the IMF adequacy metric. Therefore, rebuilding this level of reserves of foreign currencies as market conditions allow, limiting the interventions in the forex market will help avoid any disorderly market conditions.
My follow-up question is on the structural reform side. Is there any work going on in that direction? Because there were very important structural reforms on the table when the standby agreement was negotiated and finally signed from the government. So is there any oversight work or any work going on in that direction?
Well, Eleni, the fund is providing technical assistance to the authorities in Georgia to help them implement some of the key reforms. The one that you are referring to is the reform of the SOEs. And this was one of the issues that has led to the suspension of the program. We believe reforming of the SOEs will increase macroeconomic stability and reduce any fiscal risks, but also will be an important feature to preserve a comfortable level of growth over the medium term and address the opportunities of leveling the playing field between public and private sector. Therefore, we still consider that Georgia's economy and the performance of the Georgian economy in the medium term will hinge on the capacity of the authorities to accelerate the reform of the SOEs and to provide for the private sector the right investment and business environment.
Ahead of the IMF's February mission, we heard from the Deputy Finance Minister, Ekaterina Gunsadze's interview with Reuters on January 14 that Georgia was aiming for a new program with the IMF and hoped to meet with the lender in February. Later, on January 20th, Minister of Economy Levan Davitashvili said the government would agree to the fund's conditions only if these terms were acceptable to the government. The program is mutually beneficial for both parties. If this is not interesting to us, then of course we will continue our activities without the program. We're open to this dialogue. The old program is a separate topic. We take it with maximum responsibility. If we agree on a new program with the IMF, it must be in line with our economic interests. We are open and ready, and we're interested. We will have meetings in February, and it will be decided whether they will come or we will work remotely. We'll share the results with you depending on how the program turns out, Levan Davitashvili said in response to our question. It is hard to understand from this statement whether the government shows or not the willingness to live up to past commitments, including the consideration of IMF-suggested reforms in the law on state-owned enterprises, which was provided by the IMF's previous program. We received an IMF press statement ahead of the staff mission on the ground in February, which stated that IMF staff will hold discussions with the Georgian authorities and other key stakeholders to assess the country's macroeconomic outlook and risks and the review the authorities' economic plans. The February mission, which has now concluded, was in preparation for the 2025 Article 4 consultation, which the IMF conducts annually with its member countries as part of its mandate to monitor global economic and financial developments. The mission's objectives did not include fund program negotiations. The last staff visit to Georgia on site has also become a dividing issue between those who interpreted the IMF visit as a tool for legitimizing the GD government and for those who did not. According to Andrew Jewell, the IMF as an institution doesn't have a political mandate, and as a result, it doesn't comment on domestic political developments. Their support includes financial and technical assistance to build capacity in economic institutions such as the central bank and finance ministry should the authorities request it. It seems the new threshold for Georgia-IMF relations is June 2025, when the current standby program finally expires. After that, hopefully, the IMF will again be open for in-depth interviews, as it has always been.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.